everyone, and thanks so much for joining us today for our webinar on HR Growth Paths with Asad Husain. My name is Catherine, and I'm on the marketing team here at Factorial HR. Today, we are so very thrilled to have Asad Husain here with us. He is a global HR executive and four-time CHRO with over 30 years of experience in human resources. Asad is here with us today to discuss about HR career growth and professional development. Before we begin, just a little bit about Factorial. We are an all-in-one HR software company that actually yesterday was just named one of LinkedIn's top 10 startups in Spain in 2021. Our software features time and attendance tracking, applicant tracking, performance reviews, and more. We streamline HR processes, giving HR professionals more time to dedicate to what really matters, their employees. This webinar is interactive and we encourage your participation. If you have questions for Asad, please write them in the chat during the presentation or raise your hand afterwards during our Q&A session. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Asad.
Thank you, Catherine. Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is well and keeping safe. I want to thank Factorial HR for inviting me to speak on this very important subject. I want to, since we have only 1 hour and I want to have an interactive session where you can ask me questions, I'm going to dive very quickly into the subject. If any one of you want to look at my career, you can go on LinkedIn. On this slide, I just want to kind of highlight that in my career, I've had the good fortune to work with really good companies. And, I was lucky that I joined the Gillette company. I applied for it, got the job, and they groomed me initially as in my HR career. The point I want to make on this slide is that in the latter half of my career, I chose the companies that I wanted to work for. And the reason I chose them was that I was trying to follow a career path for myself where I would have the highest impact. And as soon as I took over my career and chose the companies and the jobs that I wanted to work for, my career started to grow quicker and quicker. So that's one of the things that I would, initially start this discussion with, is that all of you need to take control of your career. All of you need to kind of think about what is the best growth path for you, and then choose the company and choose the job that is going to help you accomplish what you want to accomplish as far as your career is concerned. My lesson was, as soon as I took over my career planning, my career grew faster than ever. We live in a time where the HR function is very, very dynamic, vibrant, and critical. With all of the change that is happening, a lot of the leaders, the employees are looking at HR and saying, okay, what do I do here? With everything that's happened over the last 2 years, the HR function has become critical. It was critical before, but it's even more critical for us now. So what's the opportunity for us? The opportunity is to step up and navigate the future. And if you don't develop yourself, you won't be able to step up, because the pace of change is so rapid that if you're not developing, you're going to be left behind. So it's very important that the HR function and HR professionals continue to develop and respond to the change that is happening all around us. At the same time, the HR function has tremendous responsibility to provide help to leaders and employees, because they're looking at all of us. So I'm very excited about the HR function and the opportunity that is there. And I'm very glad that we're having this kind of a session where we're talking about, okay, how do we develop ourselves so that we can respond to this opportunity and really live up to the responsibility that employees and leaders are placing on all of us. And I know that it will require a lot of courage. If you're working in the HR function, courage is something that you will definitely need. So let's jump into, how I think you can grow yourself. There are many things that each one of us can do to develop ourselves. And, there are many participants here. Everyone's situation is different. But one of the accelerators that I wanted to share with you is that within HR, sometimes we develop an agenda or work on things that we think are very important, that are going to be very helpful to the company, to the customers, or to our employees. But it is not perceived as value by the business. So remember, Dave Ulrich, who's an HR guru, he kind of talks about this. The value is always defined by the receiver. So the receiver is the employee, the receiver is the leaders, the receiver is the customer. And therefore, it's very important that we kind of think about, what value are we delivering and how it is being received. In my last 3 roles as the CHRO, the first thing that I did when I went to those companies was ask the business, what is the most important thing to you from an HR perspective? And I asked the same question to the HR function. What is the most important thing for the business? All 3 times, what the business thought was the most important thing, it was not important for the HR function. And whatever the HR function thought was important, it wasn't important for the business. So there's always this gap. It doesn't mean the business is right always or the HR function is right always. I'm identifying and kind of talking about the fact that the value that the business wants to receive, there's always a gap between what HR thinks and the business thinks. So if you're an HR professional, one of the things that you want to do in your career is that understand what value are you delivering for the business right from the start. If you're in recruitment, if you're in compensation, if you're in employee relations, if you're in training and development, think about the value that you're trying to deliver for the business and bring them along. Make them understand how this helps the business. And that alignment is very, very important. As soon as you have that alignment, it will accelerate your career. The second accelerator that I want to talk about is, to me, it's the most important thing. If you're in HR, you need to be able to do this, which is your ability to recognize and assess what good talent looks like in your organization. Start doing this no matter which function you're in and what level you're in the organization. If the HR function cannot identify and recognize what good talent is in an organization, no, you will lose credibility. No, nothing else will really matter. And what are 2 most important things in trying to assess what good talent looks like? The first thing is you have to understand the business. Because if you don't understand the business, what is good talent for the business is going to be a difficult question for you. So understand the business and understand the skills that are needed, not only today, but in the future. This particular capability is very, very important. When you get to the highest level in HR, the board, the CEO, the leadership team is going to always look at you, HR, and say, do we have the right talent in the organization? What can we do to have the right talent in the organization? So building that capability, if you're sitting in a business meeting, 5 people talk, at the end of that talk, can you kind of have an early assessment around, okay, who's a good talent in your organization? Can you assess that? That's very, very important. As soon as you start doing that, you will bring a lot of credibility in the programs, initiatives, and whatever objectives that you work on. You will bring a tremendous capability if you know how to recognize and assess good talent. Another HR accelerator, and this is true for anybody, not just HR, but I think very specifically for HR, this is very true. Stop chasing titles and chase experiences. Events, situations will drive your career. Look at all the things that are happening, that have happened over the last 2 years. And HR has had to step up and kind of provide clarity to employees and leaders and organizations. So instead of chasing titles, work for companies and put yourself in situations or jobs where you will experience different things. And those different things will allow you to grow. So for example, I kind of picked a few things that really accelerated my career, the kind of experiences. Very early on, I had to deal with a hostile union. That made me learn, that made me grow, that was an experience that I've never had. And people around me saw me, how I reacted to it, how I learned, and how I prepared the organization going forward. So look for experiences. It's okay to go for a title, but behind the title, what experiences do you need in your career? What experiences are you lacking? And how will you get those experiences if you go for this particular job? So chase experiences, because that's what drives the HR career. Your ability to step up, your ability to learn, and your ability to demonstrate to people who you are and how you can help the company is when these situations come up and how you respond to those situations. Another important accelerator that I would kind of point to as far as your development is concerned, don't measure your progress in terms of time. Measure your progress in terms of the accomplishments and experiences that you have delivered. Because if I am, let's say, looking for an HR business partner today, should I hire somebody who has already done that job for 3 years by just running around and putting fires every day, talking to employees, talking to leaders? Or should I hire an HR business partner who has helped the company navigate the hybrid workplace, or is helping the company think about the return to work strategy? So who would I really want is dependent on what accomplishment and experiences you have. It's not how much time you've been in this role. I've heard people say, okay, I've been in this role 2 years. It's time for me to be promoted, or time for me to move on to another job. So measure your progress in terms of accomplishments. As you plan your career, think about what accomplishments you have and what accomplishments you need, and stack them up. And when you show that on your resume, or when the business sees the accomplishments that you have, it will accelerate your career very, very quickly. One of the most important things that is very important for an HR leader, particularly an HR professional as well, but an HR leader is, particularly, is building credibility in the organization. When you have credibility, you will have the ability to influence people, influence leaders, influence the direction that the company's moving in. And that will lead to the impact that you have on the business. So building credibility leads to impact. How do you build credibility? I think today you have to demonstrate that you genuinely care about the employees. If you don't do that, I don't think that as an HR professional, we can be credible. Saying that I like working with people is not enough. You have to demonstrate that you genuinely care about the employees and their well-being. That is very important. You have to show that. That builds credibility. Another, HR failing is that we make promises and we don't deliver. So if you want to build credibility, if you make a promise, you have to deliver. I think in terms of other factors that build credibility is that, do you understand the workforce? There are 3, 4, 5 generations of employees working in the workforce. Each one of them each generation presents a different set of challenges. And how do you engage them? How do you motivate them? These are all things that as an HR professional, you need to understand. Once you have that understanding, that builds your credibility in the organization. You have to know the workforce. And I think we've already spoken about the fact that you need to understand the business. If you don't understand the business, how the business makes money, how the business makes a profit, you will not have credibility, because the business will always say that, Asad, you don't understand the business and you're proposing something that is not going to be helpful. So understanding the business is important. And I think today, something that is very, very important to build credibility for an HR leader is your ability to navigate the future. So it's not enough that you know all these things. You have to help the organization see what's coming around the corner and what should the organization be prepared for, and what kind of employees and what kind of strategies do we need. So your ability to navigate the future is very, very important. That's how you build credibility. And once you have credibility, your ability to impact the business is going to be huge, and that will accelerate your career. I think, there are many things that we can do, but I think given the situation, some of the other accelerators are, your best friends are research. There's so much happening. There's so many different things that are happening. You need to be on top of research. You need to provide those findings to your organizations. You need to understand what is happening around the HR functions around the globe, how people are responding, how employees are feeling. You need to be able to understand and read research, and then kind of come to conclusions around, okay, what's the best thing your organization can do, so that you have options, you understand how other people are reacting. So your best friends are research. Your best friend is data analytics. Your ability to predict is going to be whether you understand the employee data, workforce data. And then the last thing is, in terms of your best friend, is employee sensing. Whether these are surveys, pulse surveys, annual surveys, your ability to sense what's happening with employees so that you can respond, react, and bring changes so that employees are motivated. These are very important things that, as HR professionals, we need to have in order to develop ourselves and to grow our own careers. And then what's in your armor? If you have armor, it should be built around courage. If there is nobody speaking up, HR should be the voice of that in that situation. and kind of highlight all the things that the organization needs. Now, don't raise your voice just for the sake of raising your voice. Raise it with data, raise it with analysis, raise it with facts, and raise it with empathy for employees. I think these are very important things, and in these times, the HR function is being asked to provide that courage and speak up so that the employees, the company, the leaders, and our customers kind of uh, feel that there is someone there who's going to have that courage to say the things that are not being said. And that is an expectation of HR. And resilience. I think the HR function has always had resilience in terms of, looking at what is our agenda and how do we get that across the business. There have been many challenges for the organization or for the HR function in terms of whether or not we sit at the table or not. Today, the resilience is a different kind of resilience where there is so much change and ambiguity, where resilience comes out as somebody who is going to remain calm, who's going to help everybody else. I think that's more the definition of resilience for the HR function today. So these are things that when you think about your career development or your professional growth, these are important things that you should have in your armor. And these are important friends that you should have with you. Every time that I've been appointed the head of HR, the first allocation that I've made in my HR budget has been dollars or money assigned to the development of every HR FTE that I have. And that's very important to me because if we're not growing as an HR function, I don't think we can help the business. So it's very important that that each and every HR professional has a development plan. So, people would come to me and say in HR and say, Asad, I have I know that you've put together some money for the development of the HR function. I want to go and attend a training program, or I want to attend a conference. My rule was for the HR function was that I'll spend the money that I've allocated only if you bring a development plan and tell me how by spending this money, it helps you grow. So it's very, very important that we in HR are not the cobbler's child who doesn't have shoes. We have to lead all of this change. We have to step up. We have to have that courage. So our growth is very, very critical to achieving all the things that I just said previously. And then, the elements of the development plan that you have to be good in terms of self-assessment. You have to know yourself. It's like saying, if I tell all of you to go to Boston right now, the first thing you need to do is to understand where are you now, so that you can decide whether you can fly, whether you can take a train, whether you need to walk, whether you need to drive to get to Boston. So self-assessment is starting with, okay, do I know myself? Where am I right now versus where I want to be? Right? And then you have to have a continuous learning strategy. If you don't learn every day or take the opportunity to develop yourself or learn, you will be left behind. And a lot of people say, okay, well, I don't have time. I don't have time to read this. I don't have time to do this because there's so much up. I think all of us can find 5 or 10 minutes where we kind of think about, okay, what learning strategy do I need to have to continue to grow? You need that. It's very, very important. And I think one of the most important things that, I was initially uncomfortable with, but got comfortable with later in my career was seeking broad feedback. Seek broad feedback as you think about your development plan. It's very, very important. It kind of helps you grow. And one of the most important lessons of developing your own development plan is that you will understand what the journey is in developing yourself, and then it'll put you in a position to help other people develop themselves. How can you develop other people when you don't know how to develop yourself? Put together a plan that delivers success for yourself, and that journey will enable you to help other people. On the last slide, I kind of put together, I won't go through all of this, but if you're in an initial HR career, okay, look for things, it doesn't matter which part of HR you work in, whether it's recruitment, employee relations, training and development, or a generalist kind of thing. Learn all the policies, processes, understand how HR teams and areas, seek opportunities to deliver services to the employees. These are great learning opportunities where you will understand the HR function, and always kind of seek opportunities to be part of something new in HR. If there's some initiative that is going on, grab onto that and kind of put together a list of things that you want to kind of learn within HR, and don't be restricted by the job description you have. The HR team has to act as one, and if one part of HR needs to kind of help the other parts of the HR, we need to learn other parts of HR as well. So that's my advice if you're in the initial HR career. And if you're in your mid-HR career, here's where you get functional expertise. You need to build credibility in the organization and seek opportunities where you can deliver a project, a strategy, or any kind of initiative across the organization. Something that is really big. Let's say if your organization is coming up with an engagement strategy, be part of that, because that will cut across the entire organization, and that will enable you to understand what it takes to be the head of HR, because as the head of HR, you're responsible for everything that happens in the organization. And like I said, in this stage, seek opportunities that impact critical business areas. A lot of times when you ask the business, what are the 5 most important projects that the company is working on, those are the projects that are going to give you visibility. Those are the projects that are going to give you impact. And those are the projects that you should seek to be part of, because you'll see the impact of those projects on the business, and that will kind of help you grow as an HR professional. And then when you're at that senior level HR, you're not only shaping the HR strategy, you have to be able to shape the business strategy. At that stage, you're really talking about, the CEO succession, the leadership effectiveness, and really helping the organization from a strategic perspective. So I'm going to stop here. I tried to highlight what I thought were some really important accelerators that cover a very broad HR group. So if you guys have any specific questions with regard to the HR growth plan, I'm happy to answer those questions. Thank you, Catherine.
Wonderful, Asad. Thanks so much for your insightful presentation. I'd like to open up the session and take questions from the audience. You can type them in the chat, or you can raise your hand. I actually have a question for you, Asad.
Sure.
You talked about talent assessment and how that is a necessary skill. How do you develop that eye for talent?
So let's say you joined the company at a junior level HR role, whatever that role is. Uh, I would encourage the HR professionals to speak to business leaders, speak to the HR function leaders, and ask them who are the top performers in the organization, who are the people who are thought of as people who are really doing well, and then ask the question, why are they thought of as um, you know good talent or high potential, or people who are doing really well. That will start to give you insight into, okay, what does good talent look like and how are people perceiving them, whether it's just performance, whether it's competencies, what are some of the elements of somebody describing what good talent looks like in an organization. And then most importantly, where if let's say you're a junior or you're an analyst in compensation and you've asked that question, you've got the answer, then you look at compensation plans because you're in compensation and you say, okay, how do we reward these people who are thought of well? And how do we reward those people who are not the top talent? So that you start understanding and relating your job, your function to that definition of what is good talent and how is the company helping or rewarding those people. So I think at that initial stage, this is what needs to happen. Did I answer your question, Catherine?
You did. Thank you very much. Actually, it looks like we have a question from Valerie. So Valerie, I'll let you talk right now.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
great. So Asad, very enjoyable. I was just thinking about something you had said earlier in the presentation about this gap between sort of the goals of the company and the goals of HR, and how this can be something kind of difficult to overcome, and or not, or that overcoming it is like a vital part of exploring career development in HR. And I was wondering if you could give me like any examples, like where does like a company's goals like fail to align with HR goals, and like how can you really go about closing that gap?
Yeah, so in the companies, one company I joined, and when I did this assessment, we covered, almost 250 leaders, and we had about 70 odd HR people who answered those questions, and their answers were very different. The business said, recruitment is our number one issue. And the HR function said, no, we recruit people really well. We know what to get. That's not an important function for us. Talent development is very important. The business was saying, well, talent development isn't really that important on our list at this point in time, because if we don't have the people, we cannot satisfy our customers, and therefore we need recruitment to step up. So there was this, when you have this misalignment, the HR function is unable to allocate resources where the business needs the biggest help. It doesn't mean the business was right in saying that, okay, talent development isn't important, but that's how they think. So then as an HR function, we have to go to them and say why talent development is important and how that will impact the business. How will the business results improve if we spend money and resources behind and time behind talent development? That dialogue is critical, because then it starts to get both the teams, both HR and the business, in a room discussing what happens, what the HR people lack, is that when they talk about talent development, they are unable to translate that into business results, right? And that's when the connotation, that doesn't help them. So as a skill that the HR function needs is to translate their work into HR, into business results. How does that really help the business? So for example, in that situation, we projected in 3 years how many people were going to leave that organization, okay, how many people were going to retire, okay, based on previous year's data. And we showed the business that if we don't develop our people, we're going to lose more people, and it's going to be more difficult to recruit people. So helping them understand how, what we're saying, what they're saying, and coming to a conclusion and saying, okay, how do we uh, line up against the business agenda? And what is more important is a dialogue that we need to have. So that the reason behind doing that survey and understanding the differences is really to drive that discussion so that we learn, we understand, and maybe change our point of view, or they understand, and they kind of change their point of view. I don't know, Valerie, if I've answered your question.
Yeah, I really like that. I think that sometimes HR gets this like reputation for being like, very like emotional, but it's so true that you need to be creating the business case. You need to be tracking those KPIs, and you need to be able to like make, like, that's how you kind of go into strategic HR, right? That's how you end up shaping business strategy instead of going along with the strategy that's been set out by people who don't maybe share your priorities. So I thought that was
Exactly.
great. Thanks so
Exactly.
much.
And part of that survey that I've always done, there is a secondary question that I ask the business and the HR functions to answer, is that let's say the business said that the most important thing for the business is recruitment. I asked them a secondary question, which is how effective is HR in recruitment? And then I asked HR function the same thing. So it's not only what is important, but how effective is HR, because that starts to shape your HR transformation in terms of you're working on something that the business doesn't appreciate, and you're working on, and whatever the business appreciates, typically the business will say that HR is not good at it. So if the HR function kind of has to kind of put resources, if you have 100 HR people, or if you have 5 people HR team, where are you going to ask them to work? You're going to ask them to work where it makes the biggest difference to the business, right? So that's very important, and having that dialogue is very important with the business.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's this sort of matter of prioritization of impact. I mean, it ties into another question I have. I don't want to like hog the floor.
Please go ahead.
Okay. Because I see, like, I was thinking about in like the mid career HR career, how to develop as an HR professional on the slide that we're looking at right now, like the idea of like building your credibility, and like how this can kind of be, I guess I was wondering if you have like maybe more specific ideas about how we can build credibility. Is this it, like kind of presenting these like strategic plans, like making the business case, like where is the credibility really coming from?
So there is, for most business leaders, their credibility starts with you understanding the business that they're trying to deliver. As soon as they realize that you understand that business and that you can add value to what they're trying to achieve, versus you having a separate agenda and forcing it on them, right? So that's the basic place that you start by saying, I understand your business. So for example, I was working in Russia for the Gillette company. We were expanding, the sales force was expanding from 2 cities to 49 cities in the former Soviet Union. And the business needed HR's help. Now, they said we can do it ourselves. We really don't need you guys to help. So the credibility came when I went around working with the sales force, meeting distributors, meeting shopkeepers, understanding what their issues were, having a dialogue with the sales rep. So when I went back to the sales leader and said, okay, this is what I experienced, this is what I learned, I understand their challenges. I understand how the distributors treat our salespeople. I understand how shopkeepers treat our salespeople. These are their problems. So let me help you with these kind of things so that this is how we can quickly expand our sales force to 49 cities. That immediately got me credibility because the sales leaders saw that I took the time to go and work with the sales rep and understand their challenges, understand what their route was, how they would deliver the product, what discussions they would have. And then I'm kind of coming back and saying, okay, I can help you with that. So that credibility is really based on understanding their business. And as soon as you do that, that's when they will open their mind to the things that you can do from an HR perspective to help them. Does that answer your question on credibility?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Welcome.
So it looks like we have some more questions here in the chat. Thank you, Marita. Thank you very much for this. This is so super insightful. I'm so happy that you're finding this insightful. We have a couple more questions. One from Euro Express. Do you have some material where we can learn about HR? What is new, what is important, etc.? And how can we know what is the best method for our company?
So I'll answer the last part, the first, which is, how do you know what is the best thing for your company? I think the first thing is you have to understand what are the 5 top business priorities that your business is trying to um, uh, accomplish, and then find HR opportunities to help the business in those 5 areas. Don't start with an HR agenda that I have to do recruitment, that I have to do employee relations, that I have to do, or compensation. Don't start with that. Start with what is the business trying to achieve over the next 2 or 3 years? What are the top 5 business objectives, and understand them really well. And then see, okay, how can you, there's so many things in HR that you could do, right? But what things in HR are going to help those 5 things, right? Part of it is going to be related to, the people. Part of it is going to be related to culture. Part of it is going to be related to the processes and policies that you should have. Part of it is going to be the technology that you should have. So a lot of HR functions make this mistake of saying, okay, here's all the great stuff that is happening around the world as far as HR is concerned. I need to bring all of that to my company. And when the business doesn't accept that, we get disappointed because we think we're working for a company that doesn't really appreciate HR. Flip the story, understand the business, and then say, okay, how can I, from an HR perspective, from all the tools and all the things that I have, how do I, how can I help those 5 things that the business is trying to achieve? That's the first part of the question. I think there's so much data, so much stuff on the internet as far as HR is concerned, and there's so many good business writers who are writing about HR. There's so many books that are coming about with HR. You should obviously look at that. I'm addicted to podcasts. There's so many good podcasts, people like McKinsey, people like Harvard Business Review. There's so many podcasts on HR as well, where you're learning. So I'm continuously kind of, torn every day that should I do this or should I do that? So there's a lot of stuff that is out there, available, books, podcasts, articles, conferences, sessions like this. There's a lot of stuff happening, and you kind of need to uh, pick and choose what you want to learn, where you are in your career, and how, what kind of things are going to be helpful to you and your company right now.
Great, Asad. And you're welcome, Euro Express. Thanks for expressing. So we have, it looks like a few more questions. I'm going to try to, I want for you to be able to devote enough time to these, but I know we're a little bit low on time. Also, I would like to mention that Factorial, we actually have a blog that comes out with latest new HR news and trends. And for those who are interested, also for resources, you can check that out on our website. The next question is from A Farmer. Today, there are many people transitioning to new careers. What outside careers can transition well into human resources? Great question.
So I think, I think anybody who has, from any business function can come into HR. I don't think that there is a barrier or something specific that kind of, there are areas that cannot come in. I think everybody can come in. I think the easiest piece from my perspective, based on the kind of companies I've worked with, the sales function is an easy transition because the sales function has a lot of people and you deal with people issues on a daily basis. So it has an element of understanding how the business makes money, and it has an element of how to motivate and reward people, how to retain people, how to attract people. So that's one function where I think that if you've been in a sales role or a sales leader, that helps coming into HR. But I don't think there is a barrier for anybody to come into HR. I don't think that. So everybody.
Perfect. I hope that helps, A Farmer. I hope that helps with your question. The next question is from Marita. Do you think a CIPD course is worth it?
So I would say that to answer that question, I would need to know where you are in your career, what is your career ambition or aspiration, where are you headed, and then kind of see whether CIPD helps you with that. If you're in an initial phase of your career, a qualification like a CIPD qualification is going to open doors. If you look at, especially in Europe, if you look at the jobs that are being advertised, they do ask for a CIPD or some other qualifications. If you're in the US, there are SHRM qualifications that you need that open doors for you. But that degree for me, that qualification opens certain doors which you may not have access to. So you need to think about which doors are you trying to open and whether there is a requirement to really get that certification or get that qualification. Or because you might not have an HR background and you want to kind of get that knowledge, then it's a good investment. But it really depends on what your career path is, where you are on that career path, and then where do you want to go, and whether a qualification really fits that. So that's how I would answer that. But there are many jobs that do require HR qualifications. And I think with so much happening within the HR function, my belief is that in the future, these qualifications are going to become very, very important. Like, for example, when people start coaching, they have to be qualified coaches. Similarly, HR will require that you have a certification or an educational degree behind yourself as this function continues to evolve and grow and become more and more important for the organization.
Excellent. Okay, so we have a question from Shafi. I am graduating with a law degree in 1 year's time. What things can I do to better prepare myself for my initial HR career? Should I focus on a generalist role?
So I think it obviously you need to find first kind of think about, okay, from an perspective, employee relations might be an area that kind of helps you, because they're whether when you come in, there might be employment law that is important, which you may have covered in your law degree. That will allow you to kind of come in and contribute to an HR function. But it really depends in terms of for you to understand the different areas of within HR. There's compensation, there's training and development, there's recruitment. What is of interest to you? And then kind of think about, okay, how do I get to that? But just having a law degree, I don't know, of the 2 or 3 years that you've kind of covered so far, how much of that was employment law, how much of that was labor laws that you covered. And that is an important part of HR. And an easy transition into an employee relations role now would be something that I would recommend. But I'd have to know more to give you more specific advice.
Great job. Okay. The next question is from Euro Express again. What is the best method to teach people soft skills? Actually, how we can motivate people to learn and to use what they learn in a new area of your company? So I guess
I think for me, and this is not specific to HR. This is specific to everybody. Okay, if you have to help people find their aspiration, okay, or what do they want to achieve in their career, and then link the learning to that. You can't force somebody to learn. You can't push things, whether it's soft skills or any other skills, technical skills. They have to see the value of learning and how that helps them achieve what they want to achieve. The biggest obstacle as far as learning is concerned, there are two obstacles. The first one is people don't know what their aspiration is. It's very difficult for them to articulate what their aspiration is. And the second barrier to learning is that whatever people learn, the opportunities to apply what they've learned aren't there. And that usually relates to the fact that they're learning something that is probably not linked to the organization or to their aspiration. So a broad answer to your question, I think helping people find what their aspiration is or their passion is the best way to help them learn and help them understand what the learning strategies are, what are different ways to learn. Sometimes you learn on the job, and 60-70% of your learning is on the job. Sometimes you learn because you have a mentor or you have a team that kind of helps you. Sometimes you learn through training or conferences, but it depends on what you're trying to learn, and that what depends on your aspiration. Where do you want to go, and what do you want to achieve? Doing a self-assessment, okay, what do I lack in terms of my long-term career aspiration, and then making a plan and saying, okay, well, to get to that place, I need these things. This is what I need to learn. And therefore, I'm going to choose jobs that allow me to learn and apply those things. That's how you build a career plan.
Wonderful. That actually, I think, ties into our next or our last question from Elizabeth. Who are good individuals to seek feedback from other than your manager?
So, your peers are often really good. I've used peers to give me feedback. So I was working for a company where the leader was, the HR leader that I had was just excellent in terms of helping me write a development plan for myself. I wrote a development plan, and part of the development plan was that I wrote certain objectives and certain ways that I would show up in meetings. And what I did with that development plan was that I showed it to my peers and said, here's my development plan. This is what I'm trying to do. So when you attend a meeting with me, can you give me feedback? Did I do all these things? So in a non-threatening way and in a constructive manner, three or four of my peers knew my development plan, and I sought their help in terms of giving me feedback. And that was non-threatening, that was not related to my performance review. And they would either, one of them would send me a small chit, handwritten chit, and said, hey, Asad, you did this well, you should focus on this. So you can build those things. I have gone to my subordinates and sought feedback from them that, okay, this is what I'm trying to do. And as far as my own development is concerned, or this is what I'm trying to do with the HR agenda. You've seen me in meetings, you've seen me interact with you. What feedback do you have? So you can have those feedback sessions. And the idea behind feedback is to kind of create a non-threatening kind of atmosphere so that you can learn from it in time so that you can act on it, not just wait till the end of the year and get feedback and can't really fix what's happened in the past, but also where it's constructive. People like to help other people. So when you seek their help, they'll give you that help. So I've used all of those areas, not just my boss, but my peers, my subordinates, and gotten feedback from them in terms of how I've done. I've sometimes when you have consultants work with you for a long period of time, you can ask them those questions as well. So different ways, but the idea is to create a comfortable, safe environment where people feel they can give you honest and constructive feedback, and you can also take that honest and constructive feedback.
Wonderful. I'd just like to say thank you again to Asad for your wonderful presentation. And also thank you to all of the guests for your participation. Really great questions. Also, if you came late, A recording of this presentation will be available next week. Thank you so much, Asad, and I hope everyone has such a nice day.
Thank you, Catherine, and thank you, everybody. You guys can reach out to me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to help other people. That's my goal now, to help other people succeed in their careers. So I'm very happy that I was invited here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Goodbye.